Once called underdogs, now called themselves bulletproof. And the fandom calls themselves ARMY. And a BTS equation that proved the only formula for this kind of success is choosing each other every single time. Western media almost exclusively analyzes BTS through the lens of marketing genius and social media strategy. However, the true foundation of their longevity rests on a risky form of artistic transparency that defied every industry rule. In their earliest years, beginning with their June of 2013 debut, the members used casually edited log videos and handwritten festa letters to communicate a vulnerability entirely absent from the polished, fiercely guarded K-pop landscape.
2014년 1월 3일 지민의 로그 끝. Yeah.
Showing 7 teenagers from a near-bankrupt agency who were openly and painfully terrified of failing. Through thousands of hours of Bangtan bombs and the honesty and chaos of their vlogs, the boundary between idol and fan began to dissolve. This specific period established what would become the BTS Equation, a mutual survival contract negotiated between the artists and a very small dedicated group of early ARMYs. The industry viewed them as underdogs with a severely limited shelf life, operating from a cramped basement studio with mirrored walls taped together. The music they produced during this era, such as the 2013 Raw adaptation of J. Cole's track in Born Singer, and the deeply melancholic hidden track C, acted as a direct, unfiltered dialogue with the people listening. These tracks were never intended for mainstream radio play or global chart domination. They were honest admissions that success felt like a mirage, and that the psychological desert of their debut years was only survivable because they were not walking through it alone. The turning point of this emotional architecture arrived in 2015 with the launch of the HYYH, the Most Beautiful Moment in Life era. This era defined their artistic growth by exploring themes of youth, anxiety, and friendship, creating the Bangtan universe storyline. This specific foundation of the willingness to show their fear that would eventually allow the fandom to withstand years of intense physical separation, global media scrutiny, and unimaginable industry pressure without ever fracturing.
We're now going to progress to some steps which are a bit more difficult. Ready, set, and begin.
As the group slowly began to gain traction and domestic visibility, they established a technical standard for live performance that fundamentally altered the expectations of the genre. While many groups prioritized aesthetic perfection or energy preservation, BTS leaned into a raw, high-intensity work ethic reminiscent of industry legends like BoA. This was not merely about executing synchronized choreography, whether they were on a massive award stage or a local broadcast. It was performed with undeniable physical commitment, with 110% effort. This extreme level of exertion quickly became a core pillar of the unspoken bond with their audience. ARMY recognized that the group was quite literally pushing their bodies to the absolute limit for the craft, often practicing between 12 to 15 hours a day. The choreography for tracks like the aggressive, mythological Dionysus and the marching band-infused On required a level of athleticism, joint impact, and risk that commanded deep respect. Behind-the-scenes footage frequently revealed members requiring supplemental oxygen masks or collapsing to the floor the exact moment they stepped out of the camera's view. This moved past pop entertainment into a physical demonstration of sincerity. For longtime followers, it was the first time they had witnessed a group maintain that agonizing level of intensity even after their fame reached global proportions. The result was a fandom that felt a deep responsibility to match the group's energy. The equation was simple. If the 7 members were willing to exhaust themselves physically to deliver a message to the world, ARMYs decided they were equally obligated to exert themselves digitally, financially, and socially to ensure that message was broadcasted as loudly as possible. This loyalty loop meant the group's physical sacrifice was rewarded with a protective, long-term commitment from an audience that refused to let such hard work be buried by industry politics. The upward trajectory of BTS eventually triggered a coordinated industry backlash, leading to the darkest period in the group's history. In 2016, as they challenged the systemic monopoly of the Big Three agencies, they were met with organized hostility. They faced coordinated chart manipulation accusations, malicious trending hashtags demanding their disbandment, and intense social media hate campaigns designed to delegitimize their organic growth. The fear of the Black Ocean, which is a silent, unlit crowd during a performance, loomed heavily over their domestic appearances. It was during this specific, high-stress crisis that the BTS Equation transitioned from a shared emotional space into a mobilized defensive fortress.
Been trying to tell you this. I was supposed to tell you this. This is all for you.
In direct response to the hostility, the group released 2-3 on their Wings album, marking their first official, dedicated fan song. The lyrical composition of the track was revolutionary for its restraint. It did not promise a perfect, utopian future, nor did it lash out in anger at their haters. It simply asked the fans to count to 3, forget the painful memories, and hold hands to endure the present reality. This song functioned as a binding protective contract, openly acknowledging that while the industry was actively trying to tear the group down, the fans were the only ones standing in the breach. And when BTS won their first major grand prize at the end of that year, their collective breakdown on stage represented the physical release of an entire year spent under siege.
감사하고 항상 아미 사랑해요, 아미, I love you!
It was during this era of intense scrutiny that ARMY became a literal, physical shield. Fans organized the groundbreaking Purple Ribbon Project at airports, communicating through heavily moderated forums to avoid leaking information to paparazzi. They locked arms to form silent human barriers to ensure the members' safety against mobbing crowds. This was a historic departure from traditional, chaotic fandom behavior.
At the LAX, they got those purple ribbons for the security. So like they, put all the way around us in the airport and outside the airport, and keep the security for us. Like they did it themselves. So like that's really an amazing thing.
Our fan is Angel.
The angels.
The fans began to self-regulate, establishing internal rules that prioritized the group's physical safety and mental well-being over their own selfish desires for proximity. By choosing to act as a highly disciplined defense force rather than an uncontrollable mob, ARMY proved that their connection to BTS was built on deep respect and connection, not entitled ownership. This defining moment in 2016 is the exact origin point of why 10 years later, the 2026 reunion is an absolute certainty.
너무 아름다운 광경 아닙니까?
지금 뭉클했어요 방금. 와.
As the Speak Yourself Stadium tour reached its peak in 2019, the group introduced a closing sequence that transformed massive, concrete arenas into a literal simulation of the deep cosmos. During the performance of Mikrokosmos, the traditional stage lighting was cut, replaced by a synchronized swarm of LED drones hovering directly above the center of the pitch. These drones formed a rotating three-dimensional helix and a map of the solar system, effectively turning the entire stadium into a planetarium. It was the visual manifestation of the song's core message that the most brilliant light isn't found on a stage, but within the individual. The lyrics of Mikrokosmos suggest that every person is a star in their own right, and that the starlight of 7 billion lives is what truly illuminates the world's darkness. For the millions of fans holding their Army Bomb lightsticks, the experience was a reminder that they were not just spectators, but vital components of the galaxy BTS had built. It remains one of the most technologically advanced and emotionally resonant uses of drone technology in live music history, symbolizing a collective, shared light that couldn't be extinguished by the darkness of the industry. But the starlight of 2019 was met with a sudden, global darkness. By the dawn of 2020, BTS had reached the undisputed height of their global reach. They had prepared the massive Map of the Soul World Tour, a career-defining spectacle set for the planet's largest stadiums. However, the sudden onset of the pandemic brought that momentum to a jarring halt, threatening the live performance connection that served as the group's lifeblood. While the release of the English single Dynamite brought them unprecedented, record-breaking chart success and their first Grammy nomination, the internal reality behind closed doors was vastly different. It was a period of profound grief, severe burnout, and a deep sense of loss over the cancellation of their tour. During this harsh reality, the core of their music shifted away from global pop anthems and back into an intimate, shared language of survival. Tracks like the melancholic Blue and Gray and the old-school hip-hop introspection of Disease from the self-directed BE album address the isolation, anxiety, and mental health struggles of the global lockdown directly. For millions of fans trapped in their homes, navigating fear, economic uncertainty, and personal loss, these lyrics became a vital psychological survival kit. BTS did not put up a facade of pop star invincibility. Jimin openly wept during the Map of the Soul virtual concert, and RM admitted to feeling lost at sea by the sudden halt of their life's work. This vulnerability mirrored the exact, terrifying sentiment of their global audience.
1, 2, 3.
The relationship rapidly evolved into a massive two-way therapy session, where the group provided the ambient soundtrack for the fans' daily endurance, and the fans provided the group with the necessary validation to keep creating music in an entirely empty world. This era proved the BTS Equation did not require a physical stage or a touring schedule to function. The bond was anchored in a shared frequency of resilience. As the world slowly moved into 2021, their historic performance of Permission to Dance inside the empty Assembly Hall of the United Nations acted as a digital letter sent to home. It reminded a grown-up generation of fans that while the world had darkened, the connection they had built remained an impenetrable lifeline. When the members' enlistment was formalized in late 2022, Western executives predicted an irreversible decline, assuming the fandom would dissipate over a 3-year hiatus. Instead, the fandom responded by initiating a period of active waiting. This era was defined by a highly structured, self-organized digital movement. Fans ran free professional tutoring sessions in multiple languages for younger fans, organized massive global charity drives under the members' names, and executed art exhibitions to keep the purple philosophy alive in the real world. During this winter hiatus, the members initiated a baton relay of solo projects designed specifically to keep the fandom anchored. Jin collaborated with Coldplay for The Astronaut, a literal farewell song before deployment. RM released Indigo and engaged in global art museum tours. Suga embarked on the Raw, aggressive D-Day solo tour that functioned as a pseudo-gathering space for fans missing the group. And Jungkook dominated global pop with Golden. The fans matched this output with a disciplined, calculated streaming strategy. These solo albums were treated as vital signal fires, with fans keeping them anchored on global charts to let the members know their collective throne was being fiercely guarded. A defining, historic moment of this fandom discipline occurred during Jin's initial military entrance. Despite intense media interest, the fandom strictly adhered to his request for privacy. Paparazzi and international news crews at the rural military base were absolutely shocked to find no crowds, no banners, and no chaos waiting at the site. This level of restraint proved the bond had matured beyond the need for selfish visibility. The hiatus was a chapter where the fandom proved their loyalty is built on respect. As the reunion approached, global media had to confront the distinction between the supportive BTS Equation and the toxic extremes of parasocial behavior. While built on deep emotion, BTS has been historically vocal about the necessity of clear boundaries. They actively built and utilized the Weverse platform to escape the manipulative editing of traditional media, allowing them to speak directly to fans, but they used that direct line to enforce discipline. Tracks like the deceptively upbeat Pied Piper were written specifically to chastise fans, reminding them that their own personal lives, studies, and careers must always come first. The song explicitly states that the artist-fan relationship has a designated safe space that must never be violated or allowed to consume a person's reality. However, the reality of global fame includes a persistent struggle against saseng behavior and illegal information trading. Despite the group's pleas for privacy, members have faced severe breaches, particularly Jungkook, who dealt with multiple home intrusion attempts following his June 2025 discharge. This included a Chinese woman arrested for attempting to enter his home on his discharge day, and a Korean woman in her 40s detained after trespassing in his parking lot on the 30th of August 2025. In contrast to fandoms that have historically ignored such behavior, the BTS and ARMY bond is unique for its internal policing. The vast majority of the fandom aggressively condemns privacy invasions, following an unspoken law that the members' private lives and families are strictly off-limits. When members are occasionally spotted in public spaces on their personal time, the community utilizes complex reporting networks to keep their locations completely secret. They develop the invisible rule of pretending not to see the artist at all, ensuring no one approaches them, photographs them, or alerts the media until the member has safely departed the area. By actively framing these strict boundaries as the ultimate form of love and respect, the BTS Equation manages to stay balanced under the crushing weight of global fame. The group gives 110% of their physical and emotional energy on the stage, and in return, the fans give them 110% of their respect and distance off the stage. The restoration of the group did not happen overnight. Starting with Jin's discharge on the 12th of June 2024, the first light of the 2024 Festa, where Jin explicitly requested to host an event to personally hug 1,000 fans just 24 hours after his release, set a deeply emotional, undeniable tone for the coming year. It was the first physical, tangible proof that the long wait was actually ending. As Jhope, RM, V, Jimin, Jungkook, and finally Suga completed their mandatory service and returned to civilian life, the gravity of the music industry shifted visibly back towards Seoul. Every opening military gate was followed by a raw Weverse live or a handwritten letter. It reinforced the singular idea that the very first people the members wanted to interact with were the ones who had waited. The process was finally completed in June 2025, exactly 3 years after the initial, tearful hiatus announcement. The group returned to find their collective throne untouched. A stunning testament to a fandom that had spent 3 years guarding a legacy they themselves had bled to help build. We are now living in the immediate, vibrating aftermath of the most significant, highly anticipated reunion in modern history. The historic release of the group's 5th studio album on the 20th of March 2026, featuring heavily conceptual tracks like Swim, an upbeat pop track about persevering through life's waves at one's own pace. There's also Body to Body and Like Animals. With 14 tracks in total, the album acknowledges that while the world has changed, the sanctuary they built together remains intact. The dense lyrical composition of the new album directly addresses the grown-up reality of 2026. Speaking to an audience that has aged, evolved, suffered, and ultimately survived alongside them over the last decade. The Gwanghwamun Palace concert, which took place just a day later in the historic center of Seoul, was the breathtaking physical manifestation of this 13-year journey. Shutting down the official palace of the Joseon dynasty, the event was globally broadcast in partnership with Netflix, bridging the gap between an intimate domestic homecoming and a massive international stadium.
Watch this beat going, hooligan. We pop out, we acting a fool.
The BTS Equation was on full display, not just on stage, but in the audiences. From the thousands of fans who voluntarily distributed handmade purple craft and water, to the self-appointed teams who stayed behind long after the music stopped to meticulously clear every piece of trash from the square, the event proved that the bond between BTS and ARMY results in a highly productive, deeply respectful community. This reunion moved beyond reclaiming Billboard spots or proving a point to the West, providing the emotional closure of a promise made a decade ago in a cramped basement. As purple light flooded the ancient center of Seoul, it became clear that the 2026 return represented the absolute peak. Not because of revenue or metrics, but because of the unyielding fans in the crowd, the ARMY that never left. The bond survived the ultimate stress test, proving that once you choose BTS, the distance of years and the noise of the industry becomes completely irrelevant. The story of the 2026 BTS reunion is not a simple pop culture comeback. It is the final, undeniable proof of a 13-year socio-cultural experiment in mutual loyalty. In a brutal, fast-paced entertainment industry explicitly designed to extract profit and replace artists as quickly as humanly possible, BTS and ARMY made the radical, defiant decision to stay. They chose to wait through a devastating global pandemic that halted the world, a grueling military hiatus, and the extreme, isolating pressures of individual global success. The BTS Equation is completely impossible to recreate because it is not based on a corporate, reproducible formula, but a deeply human, heavily tested history of mutual protection. The group gave 110% of their bodies, their youth, and their art to a fandom that gave 110% of their time, their voices, and their loyalty right back. After everything, when the purple lights finally came back on in Seoul, they were still choosing each other. Every single time. Because the wait was real and the bond was deep.